So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you very much. We're going to talk now about the Monaco Blue Initiative, of course, but also all the work that we're doing today is going to move forward towards the Blue Economy and Finance Forum, which will take place just before the UN Ocean Conference. And I'd like to introduce our illustrious Fireside chatties. I know there is no fire, but we can still sit side by side and chat. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists, bearing in mind the words that His Serene Highness Prince Albert said this morning, that the fight is urgent, and he really emphasized those words, cooperation and efficiency, and I think I would add to that also profitability. So with that in mind, let me introduce our Fireside Chat panelists who are going to give us an update. Mr. Poe, Chair of the Blue Economy and Finance Forum, also Chair of the Starfish Mission Board in France, Her Excellency Elana Said, Co-Chair of the Blue Economy and Finance Forum and Permanent Representative of the Republic of Palau to the United Nations and Chair of the Alliance of Small Island States. Also Robert Calcanu, the Chief Executive Officer of the Oceanographic Institute and the Prince Albert I of Monaco Foundation. And last but certainly not least, Olivier Wenden, Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation. To all of you, please join me up here on stage. And a reminder to all of you also that you do have your simultaneous translation devices that you can use if you would like. Welcome. Hello all, lovely to see you. Hope you enjoyed your coffee. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Calcano. Tell us more about this Blue Economy and Finance Forum, and more importantly, how did it come about?
How and why, maybe. So
yes.
How is quite simple, in fact. When the President of the French Republic, President Macron, decided to locate the UNO conference in Nice, one of the first persons that I was willing to inform was His Serene Highness Prince Albert II. And he explained that one of the reasons why he chose Nice to host the UNO conference was because Nice was very close to Monaco, and that he was willing the Principality of Monaco and His Serene Highness Prince Albert II to be strongly involved and participate in the organization of the UNO conference. So he asked the Prince if he was willing to propose something for that UNO conference. And I remember at that time that we discussed with the Prince and Bernard Fautrier and Olivier Wenden, and I met Olivier Poivre d'Arvor, and progressively we had that idea of creating something on the blue economy and finance. And why blue economy and finance? Because we are working, the Prince is working since 2009-05 to participate and protect the ocean, and I think we had several successes in sensibilization, in involving head of larger, bigger state, in reaching agreement like the BBNG agreement, the Kunming agreement on the COP15, the 30 by 30. But we think that now we need to have actions, we need to have decision, and we need to have big money. That's the reason why we want to involve the corporations and the banks in the system.
Big money. And Olivia, what do you expect?
That's very blunt. Thank you for asking. But that's the core question, I guess. So welcome, everyone. As Robert Calcagno just said, there is a tradition in Monaco for the ocean, as you know, from conservation, philanthropy, but thanks to His Serene Highness, moving also towards impact investment. The Blue Economy Forum, the Blue Economy and Finance Forum, is a very unique event. It will be, first of all, a one-shot. Second, it's a B2B event, during which we want to gather and unite financial institutions, sovereign funds, pension funds. We want to bring to the table CEOs of multinationals in very different sectors of activities and promising activities of the blue economy. We want to also bring together very inspiring governments and leaders. And in summary, in a nutshell, to bring together all the relevant stakeholders that want to move forward and accelerate the shaping of a new blue economy. So when it comes to my priorities, and I think we all share these, it will be roughly around 4 pillars, I would say. First of all, and we're very happy that a dedicated event will be hosted by His Serene Highness Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum and Ray Dalio. We will gather for the first time ever sovereign funds and pension funds around the notion of blue economy. It's sad to say, we will be in 2025, it will be a first time. Why is it so important? Because when we talk about catalytic changes for the blue economy, we need big money, as Robert Calcagno just said. And they have the dry powder, they have the vision, but above all, they also have tremendous potential to eliminate the barriers when it comes to creating the new blue economy. My second pillar will be a pitch session. We want during the BEFF tangible results. We hope to have 0 pledges. We are very tough in this committee to select the initiative that will be selected, but we don't want pledges. We want action, we want results, and tangible actions and coalitions. Therefore, this pitch session will be about the visionaries, entrepreneurs, and business leaders that are currently building the industries of tomorrow, the industries that we need. How will that work? Well, we will select 10 leading solutions, thanks and alongside our friends at the Earthshot Prize, and also with many supporters that are here in the room from the World Economic Forum, Builders Vision, Solar Impulse Foundation, and a lot of them more. But 10 solutions only, covering a very wide span of sectors across the blue economy, from early to late stage as well. But the key point here, and the added value, will be these entrepreneurs will have to present with someone from their cap table. So an LP, an investor, to justify the reason why they put money and why they believe in that solution. Third pillar, which is transversal to the whole forum, it will be giving a stage, a global stage, to scalable, replicable, bankable, and winning ocean solutions led by the public or the private sectors. Of course, we will keep a very strong focus on balancing North and South solutions, but also balancing local, regional, and global financial tools to address that needs. And my last point will be all about the philosophy of the forum, which is very aligned with the philosophy of the Foundation of His Serene Highness. It's really about not signing more MOUs, not creating new, sometimes inactive coalitions, but rather to focus on existing partnerships and building impact from day one. I know it's a bit ambitious when you say it like that, but I believe with this strong committee, we are about to achieve that. And let me just conclude by 2 figures to stay on the optimistic note. I think money speaks very clearly today. Ocean investment assets have doubled in just 5 years, according to the OECD, and private ocean sector's investments skyrocketed by 45% in 2024 alone, according to the OECD as well. That's quite an interesting figure to remember. And let me conclude that question by quoting His Serene Highness. This is one of the rare moments in history where doing what is right for our planet aligns seamlessly with the interests of investors.
Olivia, thank you. That's, it actually sounds something really to look forward to. And it really sounds, I think, being ambitious is a good thing in this day and age right now. I'm going to ask a similar question to you, Pascal-Ami. What are your expectations, particularly when it comes to existing and new funding figures as well?
Well, in line with what Robert and Olivier just said, Eliana and myself have conceptualized a frame for this Monaco BEFF, which is basically about 1 message and 3 deliverables. The message is very simple. A blue, sustainable economy and finance is not a dream. It exists. There is already a lot happening. And Monaco will not be about inventing a blue economy and finance, but about scaling up what has worked so far. That's the line. Now, 3 baskets of deliverables. One, we've selected 200 initiatives, which are not ideas of what might work, but about initiatives that are already happening, that are already financed. And a part of that will be selected to be displayed during the forum. And that's very much in line with what Olivier said about making clear that there are already examples on which we can do more. The second one will be about new commitments, not new ideas, not new dreams, new commitments by a series of actors, whether from business, banking, insurance, philanthropy. And the third one is about looking forward at what should we recommend, the we being the whole stakeholders of the forum, in order to create the necessary stable, usable infrastructures of what a future global blue economy and finance will look like. So that's the plan. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to answer your question about numbers now. This is our little secret, and we keep it close to our chest for the moment. We will answer your question on the 8th of June.
Okay, that's fabulous. And good to see you. I do want to know your vision as well. I won't try and get the numbers out of you either, don't worry. But your vision for the various stakeholders, different roles of people. I know there's this, we talk about this spectrum of people who have some sort of vested interest along the way. So how important are the different states, the private sectors and the philanthropists, and where do you see each one playing a role?
Thank you so much, and that's a really important question. I will say I really enjoyed Daniela's response to the capital stack from the last panel.
It was great, wasn't it? I got a lot out of that too.
It was a great response, but it also really streamlined what is an incredibly complex ecosystem. So just to summarize what she said, there's philanthropy and early stage investors that come in to create proof of concepts. There's a venture capital space that is more focused on high growth industries. We're missing a key component, the $10 to $50 million check sector, and then you have the public capital markets and the private sector that can really drive a lot of the large checks that create a transformational agenda for the ocean economy. So given that that's the capital stack, how do you work within each of those pillars? And maybe I'll give you a few examples, because sometimes we talk about these things and they're hard to conceptualize. So one initiative that I'd like to highlight, it's called the Unlocking Blue Pacific Prosperity Initiative. This is spearheaded by my president. This is an initiative that brought together 22 small island countries in the Pacific that created something to commit to conserving 30% of the blue Pacific continent, and then create sustainable ocean industries that provide prosperity for the people of the Pacific. So this was a vision that was started by the heads of state. Philanthropy came in to support the initiative. So the Bezos Earth Fund committed $100 million to start this. The BEFF came in with $125 million to support it. We've also gotten commitments from the some smaller philanthropies in Australia, and then the Australian government has finally come in to support that. So we have philanthropy catalyzing larger investments by the public sector, and right now we are trying to figure out how we take this, the corpus of this money, and then mobilize the private sector. So we're in conversations with corporates, for example, Walmart, to see if they want to create some public-private partnerships for blue foods. We're also in consultations with some of the investment banks that can drive some blue bond type of instruments to grow that initiative. So it's really something where the public sectors and the leaders have to lead, but they have to kind of structure the process where one feeds on another to catalyze investments into a really transformative initiative. So this UBPP is the largest conservation initiative in the history of the world. The Blue Pacific continent is about 1.5 times the size of the African continent. And so conserving 30% of that is going to be a really big shift for the ocean, but it's also trying to make sure that we shift the extractive industries of the past into more sustainable, regenerative economies of the future. So whether that's sustainable aquaculture, sustainable fisheries, that's kind of the vision that we have, and it's an example of how all these stakeholders have to work together to deliver on that vision.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. And Olivia, I'm just going to come back to you here just to talk about innovation and how that plays into these conversations that you're having as you plan and prepare.
Well, yes, and let's be clear again here. There's no silver bullet, and we certainly not believe that technology will save us all and that we should continue to do business as usual. That's clearly not our point. However, I think we went too far in our human activities, depleting the ocean and impacting too much the ocean, that we must also rely, at least partially, on innovation, being technology, or also new ways of approaching the challenges that we face. And that will be the spirit of the Blue Economy and Finance Forum, but to really articulate innovation and financial needs. The backbone of our activity here is to understand that, and we know it here, but a healthy ocean is clearly not a burden on the economy. It is the economy. And that should be the starting point. Healthy ocean equals the economy, full stop. And then when it comes to the innovation fields, and this is clearly something we've also designed through the ReOcean Fund that the Foundation launched in 2023, we have identified very promising sectors of the blue economy for which you can have the win-win situation. So very solid financial returns, but also a positive impact on the marine ecosystems, and that's key. And among these sectors, and they will be very central in the organization and architecture of the program of the forum, you will have sustainable aquaculture. So bear with me a second, but I want really to go into some figures here. Sustainable aquaculture will represent a market value of roughly $400 billion by the end of this decade. This is not from me, this is from the World Bank. And from now, 2025, this sustainable aquaculture market is already more profitable than traditional fisheries altogether. So sustainable aquaculture, that's an avenue for investing. Green shipping, we mentioned it a lot, and there will be a very central piece of the forum in Monaco. So green shipping, maritime trade is also expected to triple by 2050. But there's a downside here. There's a need of financing of $1.4 trillion to remove the green premiums and cut the emissions, according to the IMO. The third tremendous sector of investment is clearly ocean data. And maritime big data is growing at a double-digit rate annually. Double-digit annual rate. Some countries will be desperate to have these kind of growing rates, I assume. Another very interesting part is the offshore energy, with $1 trillion market expected by 2040, according to the IEA. And this market is set to deliver up to 10% of our global electricity needs by the year 2050 as well. Two more very interesting and promising sectors, of course, ocean carbon. We mentioned that earlier this morning. That's about to hit a $50 billion market by 2030, according to Bloomberg. And last but not least, coastal resilience. this is often the one left on the side of the road. We don't have enough businesses investing right now or innovating right now on this crucial topic. But again, bear with me. Coastal resilience is set to save a whopping $200 billion by 2030, according to the World Economic Forum. That's exactly where, and on these 6 sectors of activity that we want to push, scale, accelerate the innovation, thanks to, as I said, pitch session, plenary sessions with the relevant actors, but also, let's be bold here, convincing the sovereign funds that it is an investable sector, that it is a competitive sector, that the risks in the blue are not higher than in the green industry. Thank you.
Those numbers are extraordinary and really, really hopeful. So with Robert, to you, working off what Olivia's just said, what's your vision of a well-financed blue economy then?
Unfortunately, I don't think there is one solution-fits-all solution for that. And as it was mentioned by the other participant, by Daniela this morning, we need to have a full spectrum of activities and financing sources, from a purely public financing to a strongly financed venture capital PE investment. The public finance, I'm speaking in front of Pascal Lamy, and he's working on that subject for several years now, but we mentioned harmful subsidy. I think it's $22 billion of harmful subsidy a year, and we have the possibility to channel that amount of money to nature positive solution. So just give you an example. I'm keen and I'm very eager to listen to Angela Eilhard, who is going to explain us the status of the second round of negotiation of the World Trade Organization this afternoon. We need to work on innovation and investment, and you mentioned, Olivier and others, the different investment, and I would like to thank all the investment funds, the Rio-Ocean Fund, the Swan Capital, and others in the room who are gathering money for that new round of discussion. So we need to work on decarbonization of the transport, the maritime industry. But one also interesting point that we are going to discuss this afternoon is really upscaling and mainstreaming innovative financing. Daniel Hoof mentioned the blue bonds this morning. So blue bonds are very positive, but it's still too small, and we need to scale up this kind of initiative. Sylvie Goulart this afternoon is going to mention something which is even smaller and newer, which is the biodiversity credit. So it won't solve everything, but we need to develop, we need to decide a frame, and I'm quite interested to listen, even if I participate to the International Advisory Panel. So I have some information on that one, but the latest news from Sylvie will be very important. So, as I mentioned, a full spectrum of initiative and sources.
And Ilana, as you look out into this room, what is your message to some of the more powerful politicians and advisors as you ask them to sort of plan ahead for this?
I think, and I'll reiterate what Robert said, which is we have to look at the spectrum of what the ocean economies are. And so I'd say pick a theme or pick a sector, because the ocean is large. So, for example, the greening of the shipping industry. The shipping industry is the 8th largest carbon-emitting sector if you consider a country. So I know there's a lot of really important work that's being done by France, by Norway, South Korea, Greece, that's really trying to catalyze the greening of the shipping industry. So that's bringing together governments, it's also bringing together shipbuilders, it's bringing together the fuel producers and saying, we have the political will to do this. What are the missing pieces that we have to get together? So I was at a very interesting meeting where the shipping industry was very eager to actually move this forward. They said they have the technology, they need the fuel. And the fuel producers said, we have the fuel, we need the financing. And the financiers said, we need the guarantees from government because it's a little bit too risky of a sector. And so that's where the government can come in and say, we can provide the guarantees, we can provide the first loss takers so that we can actually move this forward. So I guess pick a very specific niche is probably one, have a vision for it, and see what are the tangible ways that you can really move it forward. And I also just kind of echo what Olivier said, which is we really need to bring in new players, and that's including the sovereign wealth funds, including the pension funds, really large pots of money that can help move the needle in a very real way. And so I think that going forward, that's maybe everybody in this room can have kind of a takeaway, which is where do you want to make impact and pick that sector and figure out how you can move things forward. I will just also end on the note that if you look at the green sector, before the Paris Agreement until today, the green bond sector is a multi-trillion-dollar industry. And this is relatively new. And so there's no reason that in 10 years we can't look at the same blue space and say the BEFF was a moment where it really catalyzed some of the movement that would transform the sustainable ocean economy. And hopefully we can see that with the participation of everybody here.
Yeah, really could very much be a tipping point. So I asked you to speak to the politicians in the room. Pascal, I wonder if you could speak to the private sector in the room, and also just what appeal would you make to them as preparation, again, as this wish list or focus that you'd like them to focus on?
Well, I'll answer this question at going back to the overall strategy we are pursuing.
Okay.
We've learned from our experience in the green sector a lot, and we're trying to factor this in our blue approach. The Greens narrative was, one, we have a huge environmental problem, and second, in order to fix it, we will need to transform our economy. That's where we are on the green. What we're trying to do with the blue is the other way around. Start with the fact that there is a huge economic potential. So you don't start with the catastrophe, you start with the opportunity. It being understood that this opportunity, this huge amount of plus for humans, will only accrue if we stop degrading our ocean. But we sort of reverse the strategy, and our experience is that it works. We've done that in the European Union, in creating this manifesto for a European Pact during the elections last year, which was promoted by the Institut Jacques Delors in Brussels and the Oceano Azul Foundation. The reason why it worked and why it was both accepted by politicians, i.e. the EU Commission, was precisely because we started with a positive element. So sustainability is key to a proper reaping of these benefits, but this experience shows us that it works. And then it helps elevating the issue at a higher level, which is looking at the whole range of what the ocean needs in various sectors. That's what the European Ocean Pact, which will be one of the deliverables for Europe of the Nice conference. This is how we've tried to inspire what we're trying to do in Monaco. We just discussed recently with Robert and his friends whether there could be something like a Mediterranean Ocean Pact, even if it's a sea and not an ocean. And if we are allowed to dream, and I think we should be allowed to dream, provided we start from serious, verified existing steps, about something like a global ocean pact. That's probably something we need to have in mind, and that will open us new perspective if and when we get this BEFF right.
Dreaming is not a bad thing at all on that. Thank you. I do want you to just stand by, because I'd love for anybody in the audience who has a burning question or a burning statement to make again to any of our panelists. We probably have time for one or two. So the ladies are here if you would like to ask a question, if you can put your hand up.
Thank you all. My question is, what do you need? How can this room support you in achieving the visions that you all have? I think it's really imperative for us to hear from you, but also know how each sector can play a role in supporting BEFF and your own initiatives.
Thank you, Daniela. I think for the BEFF, we're looking to invite people, individuals who are key decision makers who can shift substantial flows of capital. So if you have introductions to those people, they could be family offices, they could be sovereign wealth managers, they could be hedge fund managers, people who we can try to advocate for the role of a sustainable ocean economy so that they can direct finance flows into the BEFF and beyond. I think that would be very helpful in trying to bring together momentum at the BEFF that brings key players together that can actually deliver what we're trying to do. So this is kind of our call to say, if you know these people, please let us know. I think that would be very helpful.
Would anybody else like to reply to that, or can we go to the floor again? Good. Anybody else? Let's see if back there, is there anyone? Well, with that in mind, thank you. It was very comprehensive, and we look forward to that as well. All the best. Thank you. They've certainly got a lot of work for them ahead, and as you heard there, any help or connections I think will be duly accepted. Before we go on to our panel, I do want to end this little bit of the session with a video message from Her Excellency Mrs. Razan Al Mubarak. She's the President of the International Union for Conservation of Nature in the United Arab Emirates. So if you would like to just take a listen to this message.
As IUCN President, I am deeply honored to address you at this pivotal moment for our ocean. And I extend my sincere gratitude to His Serene Highness Prince Albert II and the Principality of Monaco for their unwavering commitment to ocean protection. Monaco's leadership in marine conservation and sustainable blue economies continues to set an example for the world. And the Blue Economy and Finance Forum is a critical and vital opportunity to mobilize action towards sustainable ocean futures. Our ocean faces growing challenges: climate change, biodiversity loss, and an unsustainable rate of exploitation. But this moment, ladies and gentlemen, also presents an extraordinary opportunity for true transformative actions. Achieving the 30 by 30 CBD target to protect 30% of the ocean by 2030 demands bold action and transformative partnerships. And the IUCN is committed to this goal through science, governance, and sustainable financing. To realize this ambition, we must bridge the ocean finance gap. Sustainable Development Goal 14 remains underfunded, yet It is critical for a resilient and thriving ocean. We must mobilize the financial sector, philanthropy, and public-private partnerships. IUCN is advancing solutions, including the One Ocean Finance Facility, a global mechanism for marine protection, sustainable use, and restoration. Also, through IUCN's Green List and the Blue Natural Capital Financing Facility, we set global conservation standards and unlock private investment for marine resilience. Leadership at the highest levels is essential. The United Arab Emirates has now joined the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy, a high-ambition coalition of 18 countries covering 42% of the world's coastline. As the UAE President's Sherpa for the Ocean Panel, I have witnessed how science-driven policy, sustainable investments, and innovation can shape an equitable and regenerative and climate-resilient ocean economy. Yet, our work is far from over. We must scale successful models and empower local communities and indigenous peoples as key stewards of marine ecosystems. Thank you once again, Your Serene Highness, and the Oceanographic Museum for convening this crucial dialogue. As a new member of IUCN, the Oceanographic Museum strengthens our collective efforts for ocean conservation. I look forward to the outcomes of this forum and to working together for lasting change. During the World Conservation Congress in Abu Dhabi, you'll have the opportunity to see the UAE's advanced research vessel, J1. This ship represents the UAE's steadfast commitment to marine conservation and ocean science. So let us commit to action, not just for today, but for the generations to come.
That was certainly a beautifully filmed segment. So thank you there to Her Excellency Mrs. Razan Al Mubarak.